Okay. First, the good news. There's no PowerPoint. And if in case you've been watching, I've been writing somewhat furiously, trying to pick up what everybody said. I got a chance to look at some of their PowerPoints beforehand. And so I hope this isn't too disjointed as I try to do this, but the idea was for me to try to pull together a little bit of what you heard tonight and why we're here and where we go from here. I want to point out a couple of things. Did you notice, by the way, that we served you something to eat that was grown locally, and you did not have any paper products, nor plastic, nor throwaway? You're using glass. I mean, we're using water to wash it. But this idea of sustainability is things that we have to start thinking about in terms of choices we make. And I think we heard that repeatedly tonight. I've struggled a little bit as I've thought about this term sustainability, because we've started using it a lot, and it's almost become a little bit flippant, and I think we've got to be focused on that. And this term green, I've gotten a little concerned about it's becoming an overused word. But this idea that sustainability meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs, I think says a lot. And this one that Bruce used, the capacity to endure. When we talk about a stable ecosystem, we talk about a system that actually can stand something to tip it in balance, but yet it comes back in balance. And that's really what sustainability means. It's this idea that there's enough there to go around and still have some left over for later. So what have we learned tonight? I think we've heard that everything's connected in some ways. There's this giant cycle. It's got many faces. And I think that this interconnectivity sort of came through many, many times in a lot of what people said. There's a very interrelated nature of going green. And when I think about this idea of green, I think what we're really talking about is your impact on your surroundings. And I think the other thing that sort of came through tonight again and again and again was that it's not up to someone else. It's up to us as individuals. And so when we start sort of balancing these things out, that the energy, the environment, the economy, these things that are sort of the 3 E's that we hear about, and this particular topic was sort of really dear to my heart. I chaired a JCCI study a couple of years ago. Sarah was part of it. That was about energy, the environment, and the economy, sustaining Jacksonville's air quality. Because what we're really thinking about is the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat. It becomes very fundamental. And I'm not sure that we always think about all those things. We take a lot of things for granted. We're used to having clean air. We're used to turning on a faucet and having unlimited amounts of drinking water. So much water that, in fact, we spray out half of it. Half of drinking water goes on projects outside the home, on the yards. I also think we heard this overall principle, KISS, keep it super simple. You don't have to be complex to go green and to be sustainable. You can do little things and make a difference. That it takes this, and I love the phrase holistic thinking. This is a phrase I do enjoy, because I think it really does mean that we've got to think about what we're doing, where we're doing it, and how these things interrelate. It all boils down to choices. We make choices in what we do, what we buy, how we live our lives. It's very important that we integrate thinking green, thinking about the impact we're having on the environment, into our everyday living. Why should we care? Well, I just said, air we breathe, water we drink, food we eat. This cradle-to-cradle concept, one of the things that frustrates me to no end is when I buy something today and it breaks and I realize I cannot get it repaired and I had to throw it away. Well, think about what, we're now paying to assemble it, harvest the materials, assemble it, use it, throw it away, goes into a landfill someplace. All these concepts that we don't really think about. This concept that we got mentioned tonight about people and planet and profit, and using Elizabeth's party, there's a fourth P there. The people, planet, profit parties, that we need to look at this whole idea of what the total life cycle cost of things are. You know, can we do better in terms of how we make some things? I think the one thing, if we can take it back to our students, is that it's little decisions we make by individuals that ultimately make a big difference. And I've said for a number of years, you may not think that you as an individual saving a few gallons of water makes a big difference. But if you think about yourself as being one of over 1 million people in the Duval County area, and everybody saves a few gallons of water a day, what that really means. My wife has become a real champion on water conservation, and we now have a couple of pitchers. We sit beside our kitchen sink. And so when we need hot water, almost automatically we put the pitcher under the tap, turn the water on, wait till it starts getting hot. It takes I'm lucky my hot water heater is not that far from my sink. I'll fill up this pitcher, we set it aside, and then when it becomes time to water plants around the house, we go around and use that to water the plants. It's really simple to do, and yet we have to think about those kinds of things. I would argue, for instance, that what we heard tonight was that it really isn't about government policy and rebates and all those kinds of things, but it's about individual choices that make a real difference, and that we really don't rely on other people, we got to rely on ourselves. I think it was Sarah that was talking about this, and we've used this analogy so much. I have to admit, I would not live in Florida if it wasn't for air conditioning. I'm sorry. And I think they forgot to tell us that we're here tonight, because I think they turned the AC off here in the building. But if you think about your lifestyle right now, you more than likely live in an air-conditioned house. You got in your air-conditioned car this morning and drove to your air-conditioned school or office or place of business. You then got back in your air-conditioned car to drive someplace else to go shop, and then drove back here. You know, all of these things took energy. All of these things were a cost. And I appreciate you being here tonight. But as we sort of think about where we're going and what's happening, we really do have to start thinking about how we balance these things out. This concept of the three-legged stool is so important, because how we're going to be sustainable, how we're going to provide for the future, is by considering not only the economy and the environment, but also this idea of social responsibility, that we have a responsibility to future generations. There's an old saying that we don't own the land, we just borrow it from our children. It's that same concept that we're looking at. I love Sarah's concept of less bad. You know, this idea that we've gone in the old green, the new green. It's so true. We had the reduce, reuse, recycle concept, but now you've got refuse and return and recognize and reward. There are a whole bunch of words that we can use. But we seem to fail to grasp this concept that we waste so much of our natural resources. As a marine biologist, I've always been concerned, ever since I first learned, that we basically put half of our drinking water on our lawns. That's always sort of frustrated me. We did a little experiment at JU during our campus spruce up day, in which we collected all the refuge that came from only did 3 buildings, and we sorted it, put in hazmat suits and sorted the waste, discovered that 75% of what we as a campus had thrown away could have been recycled. And in some cases, it's really frustrating, because the recycle bin is sitting right there beside the trash bin, and you could put it right there. But you've got to get people to think about it. They're so used to just throwing it away that we don't always think about what we can do. The idea, and I think it was Sarah that mentioned, speaking out. Model your behavior. Think about what you're doing. If you can just take on 1 or 2 little things you can do, and you can talk about them, and you can illustrate to other people how you can do it. I had talked for a long time about putting in some guttering at my house and putting in rain barrels. Well, as it turned out, Elizabeth had a friend who did that kind of thing, Okay, let's go do it. He did it. And then I just had a friend who said to me, by the way, you stimulated me to go do it myself, because he saw I had done it. I said, what a great response it had been. And he said, okay, I've done it. So things like this multiply. And so when you model what you believe in your behavior, I think that makes a big difference. One of the things you can also do, and I mentioned a couple of times, I think, is start thinking about what you're doing. Journal your life and what you consume. It's amazing when you start writing down what you use and how you use it and where it goes. I started doing this a few years ago trying to lose weight. I eventually gave up. I wrote down what I ate, and then I started reading what the packages were, and then I read the chemicals, and so obviously I failed. I didn't lose any weight, but that's another whole story. But this idea that we can think about, particularly in our classrooms, how we integrate this idea of sustainability into math, into writing, obviously into science, but there's ways to integrate this into curriculums that really are very non-threatening, and we can make it work so well, I think. You've heard a lot of resources. I wanted to mention one that I don't think really got plugged very well. Most of us have a JEA account. If you haven't logged on to JEA and opened up your own account and looked at the tools that are available in the JEA account in terms of your energy consumption, your water consumption, it's amazing what you can find out about your own habits by looking at your energy bill and your water consumption, because you'll very quickly see where you use things and what you're doing. And it relates to money. I've become very, very diligent about turning off what Sarah calls the phantom load. I call it energy vampires. It's the things we leave plugged in all the time we don't think about. It's that dustbuster that's plugged in all the time. It's your cell phone charger that's plugged in all the time. Whether you're using it or not, they are using electricity. I've taken to put a lot of those things now on a power strip. And I just hit the switch and turn the whole thing off. You can do this also for your televisions and computers and things like that. We've tried at the university to get people to turn their computers off, for instance, when they leave. Because if you stop and think about it, you're actually gone from your office typically more than you're there. And so if you'll turn your computer off, very simple thing, you save a tremendous amount of energy. It all boils down to money. a good prop, yeah.
But this is a smart one where you can, if your TV is attached to your DVR or your stereo and all that kind of stuff, if you turn off your TV, the other two, everything else goes off. So they're getting smart as far as the...
Yeah, there's so much out there that you can do. And so I think the take-home lesson tonight is think about what you do and take responsibility for it. And it doesn't have to be big, hairy, horrendous things. It can be little, teeny, tiny steps. And if we take anything home tonight, I hope that we're taking home the thought, and we'll instill it in our students, that they make a difference. That what we as individuals do make a difference. And then I'll close with one last word, and that was something Elizabeth said, and that is vote. So that, I think, sort of summarizes what we learned tonight, and hopefully I did it without boring you too much. So thank you.